There is some pushing going on with Chicago police. Here's a look. I'll watch this with you. Mark Rivera is there with us. Mark, can you hear us?
Hello, Gowdy.
Okay, hold on. So we've got Chuck Gowdy as well.
As you can hear right now. Hold on, Robert. Okay, here we go. So police officers and protesters have started to clash in front of Ogilvy Transportation Center, just west of the transportation at Madison and Clinton. Hundreds of Chicago police officers and several hundred protesters have started to clash with each other. Protesters approaching a police line and starting to push through. Police pushing back, all saying push back, push back. And as you can see in front of us here, we're staying as far as we can go. All right, stay back. Here we go. We're backing up. There is some serious clashing going on right now. Several arrests have been made at this point, and we are seeing a non-violent protest. Remember this, it looks like some of the protesters have broken through the police line just south on Clinton. Chicago police trying to corral them down south on Clinton right now. I know you can hear how chaotic it is. They're getting corralled. They are getting corralled. All right, we're watching out. We're watching out. Here we go. Okay, we're backing up now. All right. All right, you can see. Yeah, we're good. We're good. We're stepping back. Hold on. We're stepping back. You see bike police officers, many other in riot gear. We're letting them have their space to come in and try to quell the violence in this protest. Remember, this group behind enemy lines was not permitted for this protest, and they do have a history. They do have a history of violence in their protesting. You can see things are turning quite badly at this moment. Many Chicago police officers in riot gear now trying to hold the line here. We, along with members of the media, are staying a little bit farther away. We're actually blocked at this point from going any further in to where some of the more intense fighting is going on right now.
Mark, can you hear me? Mark?
Yes, I can.
Okay,
I can.
Tell me where you are. I know you mentioned, how far are you away from the Israeli consulate? And do you believe this is that group behind enemy lines?
Yes, they announced themselves as behind enemy lines as they started this protest that just, 15 minutes ago was completely peaceful. They had some speakers, and then things took a turn as they approached the police line. The police were stopped at Clinton and Madison. That is where the police line was. The protesters tried to attempt to push through a police bike blockade at Clinton and Madison, just west, on the west side of the Ogilvy Transportation Center, where the Israeli consulate is. And so they are now, the group has moved now south on Clinton, slightly south, not even a block away from Ogilvy Transportation Center. But, I mean, it's clear their intention was to go up to the police line to cause a disturbance, and this is what has resulted.
Yeah, it's also clear Chicago police seem prepared for this. Stay with us, Mark. We might keep your camera up. You talked about behind enemy lines. We've seen several.
Got some people being arrested right now.
I know. It's hard for you to see. Yeah, it's hard for you to see. We've seen at least 3 people taken into custody, it looks like. So it's hard to angle from Mark with his crew there. Chuck Gowdy has done extensive I-Team reporting on behind enemy lines. He is also with us tonight. Chuck, they had been threatening violence for quite some time. This is not a surprise to law enforcement or federal officials, is it?
Yep.
Rob, not a surprise. The authorities had tried to box in this group in a one-block area. This is the building right here where the Israeli consulate is located, and take a look right here. They were trying to block in the protesters on this street right here. Well, right now, the protesters have moved about 100 yards this direction as riot police are moving in now in an attempt to regain control. This went south very quickly. It went from speeches to street brawls. The authorities have taken away several people at this hour in handcuffs, and they appear to be trying to shut this down quickly. As you can see, Chicago police riot-equipped officers are moving through the intersection here, attempting to split the protest group and shut down those who have turned to violence in the middle of the street. This is the intersection of Madison and Clinton in the West Loop, and the authorities have now blocked off both streets in an effort to bring it to an end.
We've got two screens going up. If you're just joining us here on our stream, we are covering live protests here in the city of Chicago. They appear to have turned violent, at least in the fact that we're seeing a few people taken into police custody after, as Chuck mentioned, they pushed their way past what looked like a line of police officers. So there are we have two live cameras. Mark Rivera is with the crew in the top right of your screen. Chuck Gowdy is down with the crew in the bottom left of your screen. They have security with them as we get close to these protesters. We want to make that clear to our viewers. Mark, you seem to be a little bit closer to this as it unfolded. We were watching here in the newsroom, and it looked like the pushing started rather quickly. Okay, Mark's trying to get his camera. So bear with us as the cameras kind of move around, because these photographers are showing this to us in real time. So there, Chuck, you could see that perimeter has been secure right there. There's all the police officers on bikes. And Mark is a little bit closer to those protesters, but it seems like pretty quickly, Chuck, from your vantage point, have the police kind of gotten this under control?
Rob, this is looking east now. The Chicago River is that way. You have lines of Chicago police officers on each side of Madison Street, and then you have a whole cordon of officers blocking off the street as well. What they don't want to happen is this unruly crowd moving into the loop. They want to be able to contain them here. And so the situation that you have right now is, if you look here, the protesters have been segregated into this one small area. Some have been arrested and taken away. And then on the other side of this group, you have another line of Chicago police officers blocking Clinton. So they've effectively penned people in here, and this is the standoff that has now occurred. If people want to continue talking, they're able to do that, according to the police. But when they attempt to break through these lines, when they are combative with Chicago police, then that's when the arrests begin.
If you're just joining us, you see our banner at the bottom, breaking news, protesters gathering outside the Israeli consulate in Chicago. For those of you unfamiliar with the downtown area, the United Center, where the convention is going on tonight, is a few miles almost directly west from where this is happening. So this is not occurring near the United Center right now. This is downtown near the public transportation center, where the Israeli consulate of Chicago is also. Mark Rivera has been there along with Chuck Gowdy. And Mark, you saw some of that violence escalate relatively quickly. Tell us what you witnessed before we went live on the air here, and where things stand right now.
Within a matter of seconds, everything changed, right? The protest organization behind enemy lines that announced itself had speakers in front of the Israeli consulate, which is in Ogilvy Transportation Center. They are now regrouping. As Chuck mentioned, police have tried to split this group. It is somewhat smaller than what it was when they approached this line of police over here. And I want to show you, earlier there were bike police officers and several other police officers lined up, two lines. Now you see riot police officers with their police nightsticks out, ready and in protection at this point, because this did turn violent. They tried to rush this line of police here at Clinton and Madison, and the police responded, tried to push them back. They ended up getting some of the protesters to go south on Clinton, But right now, though, the rest of the protesters essentially regrouped back into the middle of Madison Street in front of Ogilvy Transportation Center, again where the Israeli consulate is, and they are regrouping, they're speaking again, and I would not be surprised if once they catch their breath for a second that they try to do something as well. But this situation has certainly changed here, going from a peaceful protest in a matter of seconds to a march and confrontation with police and a violent clash with police where you've seen multiple arrests at this point. Chicago police standing by, you see hundreds of them at this point lining the street south down Clinton, trying to make sure that no one else.
You got to get up on the sidewalk.
All right, we're now being told that we need to be off the street.
We'll let you go, Mark.
We're going to head there right now.
Okay, that's Tom Ahern, one of the higher-ranking officials with the Chicago Police Department, telling Mark and his crew to move, so they'll do so. Chuck Gowdy was near the United Center yesterday, so if you've been following the convention and the protest, Chuck, you saw a fence be breached yesterday, and then you asked the superintendent if they would reassess. They did reassess and strengthen that perimeter. He also said his officers used their hands as they were trained, and if these protesters and these agitators use their hands, police will as well, and it looks like that just happened a few minutes ago.
Rob, I have not heard gunfire. Certainly there have been no tasers fired. I haven't seen pepper spray on either side of this equation, but this up high gives you a pretty good idea of what's happening now. You have, with their backs to us, the lines of protesters, and there aren't many of them. I mean, I would guess there's maybe 150 at most. They have kind of returned to their stump speech why they're here. They are protesting the continued war in Gaza. They want the United States out. They don't want any more aid going to the Israelis, and that's what the message is. There's been pushing and shoving here and there, skirmishes, as the police call them, the skirmish line, which is where the protesters are essentially face-to-face with riot gear-equipped officers. And we're being told now that up to 5 people have been arrested, but you can count on more people being arrested the way that this is going. The authorities at this point have accomplished what they want to do, and that is to contain this group in this one block area that's directly in front of the Accenture building where the Israeli consulate is located. Oddly, the Israeli consulate closed several hours ago, so they're not, it's falling on deaf ears what they're saying here, but of course that many of these protest groups don't care about that. They're interested in making a public display, which is happening here. There are spectators who have come up and down the sidewalks as well. There are many television crews who were told that there would be tens of thousands of protesters showing up here to protest the Gaza war, and in fact they ended up having very few numbers of people.
Scientology's a cult, man.
Chuck has security with him, so we'll move him here. If this gentleman probably doesn't know that Chuck has armed security with him, hopefully it won't escalate any farther than that. And so we'll keep an eye on that. Mark's relocating for us. If you're just joining us, there have been some violent protests that have erupted near the Israeli consulate. This is a couple miles from the United Center where the convention is ongoing tonight. It is not the same location where some of these agitators breached a fence yesterday. Chuck Gowdy was there as well as that unfolded. But as we watched one of our feeds come in, Mark Rivera, one of our reporters, also on the scene. We'll try and get back to him in just a few minutes. We saw, at least, and Chuck was reporting, the I-team's getting information that perhaps 5 people have been taken into custody. When we get Chuck back, want to ask him if this looks like the group that was also part of that breach yesterday at the United Center. This is a group called Behind Enemy Lines, who had been promising to cause some trouble here in Chicago during the convention, and it looks like they have succeeded in that. They're definitely getting some police activity downtown. We would call this the Loop, like I said, which is east of the United Center by a few miles. Chuck, I think you're safe again. Is it the same group that you saw yesterday much closer to the United Center? You may not know that, but I figured I'd ask.
want freedom here, man. I'm here for it. You're here for all the violence, aren't you?
Chuck, can you hear me?
Yeah, you fucked up. You said you were fucking doing it.
Okay, yeah. We don't. If you hear some swear words, we're going to try and eliminate that.
Yeah, we're ready.
Okay, that's Mark. Mark Rivera. Apologize to our viewers who might hear an occasional cuss word here. Mark, have you been moved back? I see that police are still there with you.
You got it. You got it. Yeah, Rob, so just to let you know what's going on right now, the protesters, again, they have backed off of the skirmish line that we were talking about earlier with all of the riot gear police that are standing. I mean, there are hundreds of them. If you take a look right here on Clinton, you see hundreds of police lining the street down the block, all in riot gear, face shields, helmets, and their police batons out. Different situation over here. You see a lot of media covering what is an American flag being burned in the middle of the street here in front of Ogilvy Transportation Center at this point. Many of those protesters still in the middle, but you see it's a large mix and group of people right now. There are a lot of media. There are maybe 100, 150 protesters in this small group right here as well. And we are just monitoring the situation because even though, okay, if you turn around here, George, there are more riot police officers coming in right behind you. You can see them lining the sides of Ogilvy Transportation Center, which is where the Israeli consulate is, as well as a major transportation hub for the city of Chicago. Obviously a very important piece of the architecture and infrastructure of our city. And now riot police officers are starting to amass in front of the doors, which were closed right around 6 p.m. today. There has been no access to this sidewalk since about 6 p.m. today. Obviously, we are keeping an eye on this situation. We're going to bring you back to the street where this is all happening here. And you see, right now we're just waiting. We're waiting for the protesters to either try something and move forward, which they did before, and that's when things became violent. And then we will see. But to Chuck's point, I mean, we have not heard gunshots. We have not seen pepper spray deployed. We have not seen tasers deployed at all. It has been police taking people who are confronting them and moving them along through that line, because it is a line that is 1, 2, 3, 4 rows deep. It is a 4-row deep line of police officers, and then moving them on to either getting them out of this protest and in this area that has become a bit of a hotbed of friction, and then some of them obviously have been arrested as well. So we're going to continue to monitor their situation for you, but we're going to try and bring you as much of the protest and stay on the side as much as we can to stay out of the police and protesters' way, because as you saw, that's exactly where those skirmishes happened and became very violent.
Mark, the police there are familiar with you. They know who you are. What are they telling you? I know they tried to move you back a little bit. What else are police telling you there at the scene?
Well, they have been just trying to make sure that the press and people who are covering the event to try and bring this to you at home don't get caught up in the violence that is happening. There are obviously this group of protesters is agitating things and is pressing back against police, and they're trying to keep us away as much as possible. Right now, they're trying to keep us clear out of that way. But more police officers are coming through, and you see they are now lining basically in a box formation every angle of Clinton and Madison. This is a 4-way intersection, and they are now lining every piece of this intersection in a box situation, and all the way farther down. George, if you go left, you can see how far down all of those riot helmets go, and face shields. You see exactly what that looks like. So they are doing their job. They're trying to keep everyone safe here, and they're standing by, waiting to see what happens, just like we are, because they are reacting to this situation. They are not. We have seen no provocation whatsoever from police in any way, shape, or form in this protest. So they are reacting as you know, public safety officers, and we are waiting to see what happens next along with them.
This protest was to take place in front of the Israeli consulate, Mark, and as Chuck mentioned, it is closed. It's in a high-rise type building. You have moved a little bit away from that, about a block or so. Is this protest now stuck and surrounded by Chicago police, by your sense, or are they going to try and move from there?
Yes. Okay. Now, let me just answer your question. They are surrounded on both ways, right? Okay. So to the west, they are blocked off. To the east, they are also blocked off at this point. And now we are following the crowd as they are trying to move, looks like, to the center of the street, again, right in front of Ogilvy Transportation Center. And they may be trying to attempt to push forward to the second blockade area. You see you see right here the remnants of an American flag on the ground, which was burned just a few minutes ago inside the protest circle and arena. And we are following them as they are marching forward. They're going east now on Madison, but they are going to face police officers blocked off on that end as well. There are hundreds more police officers also with riot helmets, riot gear, and their police sticks out ready to respond to what this crowd does. I'm gonna send it back to you, Rob, because what I'm gonna do is we're gonna try and get on the other side of this, and we will see you in just a moment, okay?
Yeah.
We're gonna get to the other side of it and bring it to you in a minute.
Okay, be safe, Mark. Mark and his crew going to move to the other side of this protest. Our investigative reporter Chuck Gowdy also there on the scene. We've got Chuck back live here. Chuck, is this the same group that you saw yesterday near the United Center? I know it's hard to tell.
There may be some individuals who are here today who were near the United Center, but this is certainly the group that has worked for the last year and pledged to do events like this. We reported on them a couple of weeks ago as being a group that last May went into the United Center during a Democratic convention training session and disrupted things. The Chicago police were called, and they got away before there could be any arrests made. At this point, what's happening is that this group has turned around and is now marching en masse eastbound on Madison Street. But what they're going to run into yet is another cordon of Chicago police officers who are blocking their way. So far, this has happened a couple of times.
Yeah, they might start going in circles. The Chicago Police Department has said it will be prepared. As Mark had said, they kind of had these guys, these ladies and gentlemen, boxed in, but it looks like they're moving again. If Chuck's saying they're going east on Madison, that would be away from the United Center. This is a couple miles away from the United Center. If you're just joining us live, this is in what we call the Loop here in Chicago. The United Center a little further out west. We've got two cameras going for you here, so pardon our crew. Sometimes the photographers are just going to try and get the best shot for us. It may get a little bit of vertigo as we move around, but we want to be sure we're safe, number one, and that we can get you the best live images as this happens here in real time. So Chuck, you said they're heading east on Madison. What would be the next cross street that you would hit down here in the Loop?
Well, there isn't going to be a cross street because the police have blocked it off. I mean, they're headed toward Union Station and the Chicago River, but they're not going to make it that far. The authorities are issuing essentially a command to disperse, which is the first of the orders that has to be given to take more aggressive actions, which would be, a mass arrest or calling in gas teams in an effort to disperse this crowd. That could be a little bit dicey because this is a canyon of high-rise buildings and there are a lot of people in here, but that certainly is one possibility.
Yep. We want to show you some video. This was taken just a few minutes ago. I've not seen it, so I'll watch this live with all of you as you stream with us here. I believe it was a small fire. Michelle, we're trying to get that for you. Here it is. Okay. So here was the fire that was set just a few minutes ago. This is the same group that burned an American flag, and that appears to be a flag. I think Mark suggested that it was, but this was just a few minutes before there was some pushing and some violence and several arrests, as we understand it, at least some people taken into custody. We saw them appear to be handcuffed and taken away, some of them screaming as Chicago police kind of led them away. The mayor has said this, the governor has said this, the superintendent has said they will let people peacefully protest in this city. They thought that was important during this Democratic National Convention. The superintendent saying earlier, though, once these protesters start to use their hands or push, the officers are trained to take action into their own hands and begin to make sure this remains peaceful. Chuck, you're back with us. This group, this behind enemy lines, is it Mark or Chuck? You guys, we have them both? Okay, we've got Mark.
Yeah,
okay,
Rob,
Mark.
Rob.
Mark, go ahead. So, Mark, you saw that fire. Did you see them light that? Was that an American flag?
It appears to be an American flag. Riot police are coming. Hold on, I gotta get it.
Be
just
safe.
Slightly. Another line of police officers in full riot gear, pads, face masks, and helmets has arrived. And has gotten another line in front. There are now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines of Chicago police officers cutting off the edge here at Madison and Canal. And looking back, you see there's about 10 to 15 yards, maybe 20 between those officers. And now there are even more police officers coming in to get another line started.
And that looks like,
So
Mark, you're
the
back.
group
Are you back in front of the Israeli consulate now? Is that the Essentia building? It looks like you're back over there now.
Yes, we are. So we were never really that far away from it,
Okay.
Rob. We were just slightly to the on the west side of the building. The building was in our sight the entire time. It just was not where most of the action was happening.
Mark, let me stop you real
especially
quick
when the-
here. On Chuck Gowdy's
Yeah.
camera there on the bottom left, that is the superintendent of the Chicago Police Department, Larry Snelling, who has been out with the men and the women protecting this great city. And he said he would continue to be shoulder to shoulder with them. And there he is giving direction. This is the superintendent, Chuck.
Rob, it certainly is. He's 10 feet away. Superintendent Larry Snelling is clearly very much in command here. And the order to disperse has been given. As I just mentioned, it's really the first line that the authorities give before they take more aggressive action. There are, I don't know how many officers, but there are hundreds and hundreds of officers, probably outnumbering the protesters at this point by at least 8 to 1. But, you know, in a case like this, it doesn't matter. If somebody doesn't want to be arrested, they're going to do their best to not be arrested, and that is what this standoff is about at this point. The authorities still have this group boxed in a one-block area right in front of the building where the Israeli consulate is. The police appear disinterested in allowing them to continue this. They gave them a long leash and allowed them to have probably a half hour, 45 minutes of speech making on the sidewalk, and then they moved to the street, and that's when the police decided that enough was enough. They had essentially shut down the street. And it should be noted, I'm reminded that this is a group that does not have a permit to do this, and that's really what the entree is for the police to move in and shut this down. If they had a permit, the police would be taking a different tact here, as we saw in the permits yesterday when people were essentially parading and marching on the street. At this point, though, this group does not have a permit. They're not going to be allowed to stay here, and if it means that they're going to be taking people into custody, as appears to be the case now, then that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's a really important point to make, Chuck. There have been permits issued, and the city of Chicago and the DNC even provided a stage and a park not far from the United Center, much closer than where you are tonight. with some of these protest organizations and said, this is your space. This group has moved away from the United Center. This is on Madison, as is the United Center, but this is probably about 12 blocks or so away from the United Center. So these protesters are nowhere close to where the Democratic National Convention is going tonight. And that's why Chuck said they don't have a permit to be here. The Chicago police look to be letting them stay on a street now shut down. Chuck, and it looks like these are all Palestinian supporters and Israeli supporters. Have you seen any clashes between these groups? Go ahead.
No, they're actually, it's interesting, this is the largest number of Israeli supporters with the Israeli flag that I've seen tonight. I mean, it's not a lot, but they're right here. And what's dividing them between the Palestinians is this line of Chicago police. And on the other side, they are, on the other side of these police officers is the main group of the Palestinians. And they were the ones who called this protest in the first place. As you say, important to note that they don't have a permit for this, don't have permission, and shouldn't be here.
Yeah, I can see behind you some of the Israeli flags that you mentioned, and then right in front of the Accenture Tower, where the Israeli consulate is, that's your bottom left screen. You see the protesters there have gathered. A lot of them wearing masks, including some gas masks. Chuck, I saw that earlier. You can see most of these are just face coverings, but as far as you know, Chicago police have not distributed any sort of pepper spray or anything that would require people putting on masks, right?
I have not seen anything dispersed, and there's been no police call for a gas team to come in an attempt to clear the streets. It doesn't seem like it would be necessary at this point. They have more than enough manpower here to take down and arrest everybody who is here illegally protesting, as they say, in the middle of the street. And so I think that probably is how this is going to end up. They're going to give another warning, probably two, to let people leave on their own, and then at that point they will move in and they will make arrests.
Okay, so that's new, or at least I didn't know that. Apologies, Chuck. That would be how this would progress. The police will give them numerous warnings, and then they would likely go in and start to perhaps make some arrests.
We noticed that during NATO initially, a decade ago, and then in the protests that followed George Floyd's murder in Chicago. I remember standing at North Avenue in Wells, and the authorities gave, it seemed like 7 or 8 warnings to the crowd that if they didn't disperse, if they didn't leave the public street, that they were going to be arrested. And the people sat down in the middle of the street, and the police then moved in and made the arrests.
Mark Rivera, our reporter, is also out there. If you're just joining us, we have 2 cameras on the same location. They're about a block apart, if that much. And on the bottom left there is right in front of the Israeli consulate building. This is a large building down in the Loop in the city of Chicago. The consulate is closed, but these protesters from behind enemy lines had said they were going to go and essentially cause trouble. And some of them have done that tonight. Top right of your screen, that's the superintendent of the Chicago Police Department, Larry Snelling, out making sure that the police are in place to do what they're there to do tonight. Mark, you're with us again. Have you seen any clashes amongst different groups of protests from where you are?
We have not seen any clashes amongst different groups of protesters at all. Right now, they are clearly separated by, several hundred Chicago police. So they're separated by a wall of blue at this point. And to give you a sense of how close Chuck and I are at this juncture is, I can see right now in my line of sight Superintendent Larry Snelling.
Okay, so you're right there.
We're less than, we are right there. We're just a little bit west of Chuck. Chuck is right at Canal, and we're just west, closer to Ogilvy Transportation Center, and basically the line of asphalt that's separating hundreds of Chicago police officers and these several hundred protesters who are in the middle of the street at this point.
Mark, let me ask you this, Mark. You've been down there for us for a couple hours now. We were watching here in the newsroom before we decided to break in with this breaking news. Have you noticed, because from here, and we're not there with you, it looks like a lot more police officers, row after row, are now there ready to keep the peace. Have you seen a significant increase in the presence of law enforcement?
Absolutely, there has been a massive increase in law enforcement. All the way to the west, I don't know if you can see here, George, if you can show them even behind, you see how many police officers are right there on Clinton. You see that that's behind the protesters. The protesters are facing east right now on Madison, so that's west on Clinton right there, and you see hundreds of Chicago police officers to the west. You see hundreds more behind us to the east, behind us here, all in riot gear now. That was not the case just an hour and a half ago. It was much different. At about 7 o'clock when this, and even before then, when protesters started showing up, there was no sense of this sort of escalation from the protesters or from the police to respond. So this is a much different scene right now. The speakers you can see are still going right now from this group behind enemy lines, and we are waiting to see what happens, because it is a stare down at this moment. It is a stare down between hundreds of protesters in the middle of the street and the wall of blue to the east and to the west of Ogilvy Transportation Center on Madison, Robert.
We have two crews out covering this for us live. Our investigative reporter Chuck Gowdy is out there with his I-team. He'll get us a lot of information as it happens in real time. There's Chuck. Chuck, it looks like they have not moved. These protesters are now at a standstill with a lot of Chicago police and other law enforcement around them.
This way? Yeah.
This is how these play out, at least over the last 5 years from the vantage point that I've had reporting on these. The police attempt to clear the street. If they can't do it, they box in the protest groups. Then they put police officers in lines like this at each end, and they issue orders to disperse. You hear the orders in the background. People are being told that they will be arrested if they continue, if they don't disperse. And the police give more than ample time in these situations to let people leave on their own, and they won't be arrested. This particular group behind enemy lines has stated very emphatically for the last year that they were not opposed to being arrested, and in fact it was treated as a badge of honor by some of their members and on their website, asking the question, have you engaged Chicago police? Have you been arrested? We reported on that a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I was just going to mention your report a few weeks ago. This group was on the radar, excuse me, of law enforcement for a long time. It's hard for us to hear what you're hearing because there's so much going on. So you are hearing Chicago police tell them they need to leave.
It's been said a couple of times. Of course, it's also being drowned out by the public address system that the protest group has brought in, and several of them also have bullhorns and don't appear to be listening to what the police are saying, and it doesn't appear as though they care much about it because they're continuing to occupy the middle of the street. The police superintendent, being the highest-ranking police officer on the scene here, would likely be the person to give the command to these troops to move in and then actually affect the mass arrest.
Yeah, it looks like he's on the move there, Chuck.
And if that happens, he is on the move. He's crossed the street to.
It looked like he went inside a building. I don't know if that was the Accenture building. Mark, I don't know if you're with us and saw that. The superintendent on the scene, it looks like he's moved. This is live, so we pardon some of the swearing that you're no doubt going to hear from some of these agitated protesters. in downtown Chicago outside the Israeli consulate. Chuck Gotti down there with our Mark Rivera. The police presence has grown significantly. These protesters do not have a permit to be here. The Chicago police have said if that was the case, you're likely going to be arrested. And now they seem to be surrounded. Chicago police are letting them continue to do this rally. You see some people with the flags right there in the bottom left of your screen. So Chuck's suggesting that they'll give them some time here, and then Chicago police will likely clear this area. This is not close to the United Center. That is really almost directly west of where these guys are, where Chuck and Mark are covering this for us. So you see more. Here's more police on the move, Mark. The superintendent's still there, Mark. Did you see that?
You know what? I cannot see the superintendent with my eyes right now. I would assume he is still here. I don't think there's a bigger issue at this moment with more police officers that are engaged at this moment as well, because there are even more police officers that have come in the last 30 seconds. There's probably 50 to 100 more police officers that have just, that have come off. So, okay, there are even more moving in now from the west.
Okay.
Turn. Okay, look over here. We may see a confrontation here.
Okay, let's hope not.
Yeah, we've got. All right, you may. Apologies for. Any of the language you may hear here.
There's some bad language.
Let's just take a look. Even more police officers in front of Accenture Tower here, Ogilvy Transportation Center. They are all amassing. And as Chuck was saying, this is a matter of time, right? I mean, the protesters have nowhere to go. They can't go to the west. They can't go to the east. They can't go to the south. They can't go into Accenture Tower. So they are stuck in the middle of the street. So the question is, when are police or protesters going to move in? Because as Chuck was mentioning, right, they heard the order to disperse. So they already did not have a permit to do this. They've heard the order to disperse, so they are not here at this point legally. I'm sure there will be more warnings to come, but at this point, I would expect many of these people to be arrested in the coming minutes.
Perhaps in the coming minutes.
Moments.
One thing I'm noticing, Mark and Chuck, is this looks to be almost exclusively Chicago police responding. As people know, there are agencies from across the country here. Obviously, Secret Service, Homeland Security, FBI, but the Chicago police, and Chuck, maybe you can offer a little insight on this. They have been training for this convention, for a situation like this, for months, perhaps for more than a year. And unfortunately, the city of Chicago over the years has seen its fair share of protests. The Chicago police were prepared for this, but it looks like they're the ones almost exclusively handling this tonight, Chuck.
Rob, that was the intent all along.
Okay.
These types of municipal operations are Chicago police operations. From day one, the superintendent, Larry Snelling, knew that his officers would be the ones who would be handling this type of an occurrence. And in fact, that's what they're doing, using the training that they've been put through for the last year or more. There are some officers from the Secret Service police here, however. I think just because they're assigned to these executive task forces that are keeping an eye on this because they have a vested interest in it. As you say, it's a couple of miles from the United Center, but regardless of that, they are planning to, they have concerns about something like this boiling over into a larger arena, and with the United Center not necessarily in play, but in session, they have some concerns about it.
Sure.
The police superintendent now back on the scene. I think he's talking to his command staff.
Sure.
And gathering a consensus about what to do next here. But it seems clear it's going to end a certain way. And one of the things that also comes into play here is that they have to have enough transport vehicles to move potentially a couple of hundred people who are under arrest. You're not going to do that all. You're not going to walk them down the street, and you're not going to put them in SUVs. So they have to have enough wagons to transport people to wherever a temporary lockup is or to the county jail.
Yeah, that's a great point, and maybe just a few blocks away or surrounding this area, downtown Chicago here in the Loop, that perhaps that's where the police are gathering some of these vehicles. We did see the superintendent. He was walking just a moment ago with a radio in his hand. It looks like he had been briefed and has kind of keeping his officers updated on what the next plan will be here, Mark. For right now, those protesters just seem to be stuck right there, and they're not going to have much time here, or maybe they will, but eventually they're going to have to disperse.
Yes, and it looks like some protesters, some pro-Israel protesters have done just that.
I can see that, yeah,
like
top right of your screen.
Yep. Yeah, they've moved out. And you can see that right over there. Superintendent Snelling was just behind us on the sidewalk talking to his command staff, and then went north over to the Accenture building through the line of police officers. In fact, it looks like he may be coming. Here he is. He's coming right here in the middle of the line. You see that there? See him right here? Okay. Yeah, we're getting you a shot of. That's the superintendent of Chicago Police, Larry Snelling, on the front lines, looking at this protest with hundreds of his officers behind him. He is holding the line here, and we are waiting to see what happens. It looks like the protesters are now going west. They are now going west on Madison and walking that direction.
Okay.
So
well,
we will
see that.
what happens. We're packed in here, so it's going to be very difficult to get over there.
Yeah, that's okay.
We will. All right, we're going shortly. No, we're going.
Be safe.
We're sidewalk. Let's go.
Okay, Mark's going to continue. We'll try and keep his camera up. And apologies if it's a little shaky. Our photographer has the camera on his shoulders, obviously. There's Chuck again. So we're seeing some movement here. I thought it was interesting that the Israeli, those who showed up with Israeli flags in support of Israel, were walking with police, leaving this scene, Chuck. I don't know if the police are giving them a chance before they move in to make arrests, telling these people, look, you're not supposed to be here. If you want to go now, go. Otherwise, it looks like maybe they're going to move in here and start to remove people.
Well, the Israeli supporters do not appear to be any kind of organized group, nor were they called to the scene that we know of. It appears to be scattered groups of Israeli supporters with the familiar flags. You may be able to see on the backside of this column of Chicago police officers down the street. They have now moved back toward the west, back near where Mark is and his crew, because that's the way that the protesters who had been in the middle of the street have now moved. The Chicago police are only going to put up with this for a little while, this back and forth. They've been given the orders. They've been told that it's an illegal protest, that they've occupied the street illegally, and at some point there will be arrests made and people will be taken away and it'll be shut down. This is exactly by the book what the superintendent said would happen in a situation like this, that people would be allowed to execute their First Amendment rights. They would, even if they didn't have a permit, they would be given great leeway. But once things started to be combative, once there was the potential for bodily harm, for property damage, there are a lot of street-level high windows here, that's when the police would step in and put an end to it.
A couple other reporters out there with you from ABC News. Matt Gutman, our chief national correspondent, is probably pretty close to you. He is saying they're about 6 or 7 rows deep, like Mark was observing, perhaps moving in at some point here before they start making, as you both alluded to, some arrests, because these protesters do not have a permit. They're not supposed to be here. And that was their point, Chuck. They went so far, this group behind enemy lines, you reported on in some investigative reports, this is what they wanted to do. This was their goal, disruption, right?
they laid it out very clearly, and so the police didn't seem particularly surprised by the way that any of this played out. And in fact, that's why, with a relatively small number of protesters who showed up here at the last minute, it was supposed to start at 7 o'clock. There was nobody here as of 6:45, and then people began trickling in, and there were a few hundred here. But the Chicago police knew that this group was intent on creating chaos. They said they were going to. They had no problem getting arrested, and so the police turned out in force, and it would appear as though they'll get their wish.
Take me. We're going. Let's go.
Okay, Mark, what do you got?
All right, listen, so all of those protesters started to move west. They have now started to clash with police at Clinton and Madison at this point. Police are holding the line as we are moving south on Clinton now with these hundreds of protesters. They have linked arms. You see the protesters themselves, all of them are linking arms. Police are holding the line and funneling them onto the sidewalk to move them forward. Okay, they're going south. So here we go.
Okay,
obviously you see hundreds of them. Yep, we're good. We're good. And we also have incredible security with us as well today. So we are just looking here at the hundreds of people being funneled onto the sidewalk. And there are many, many waiting Chicago police vehicles. It's unclear at this point if anyone will be arrested during this, but there must have been 1,000 Chicago police officers out here at some point, and they have been able to funnel this protest out from the middle of the street. And you see some of the Chicago police officers are now getting in front of us and are making sure that these protesters continue on their path south on Clinton. And we're going to continue to follow here. You see all of these vehicles here lined up on Clinton, these vans. Those are police vehicles.
Yeah, and Chuck was mentioning that.
Transport vehicles.
Yep, they got to get those if they're going to start making arrests.
Yes, and many of these vehicles actually brought the Chicago police officers here. These are the vehicles you'll see if you're out here during the DNC or any large-scale event. The Chicago Police Department has many of these vans to bring officers to locations that are needed like this. They disperse and deploy these officers where needed throughout the city. And you see there were many needed tonight. So we are marching now down south on Clinton. And we are from Madison, and we're continuing to go. And it's kind of difficult to see. This line of police is keeping people on the sidewalk, all again in riot gear. And people are now going south, and you see police officers also in riot gear in the middle of the street, making sure no one breaks through. And if they are, most likely they would be arrested. This looks like a situation that is able to be de-escalated in some ways because there is movement now. We're going south on Clinton with this group of protesters that was boxed in at one point. They left, they went south on Clinton, and now they're moving. And they have space, and eventually we're going to see where they end up to see if they are able to then disperse into the street or whether they are going to face some sort of punishment. Or anything like that in the coming moments. But you see this large group now on the sidewalk as well. And we are walking, let's see what this intersection is as we're coming up to it, but you see Chicago police officers walking with the protesters all at the corner, all in the middle of the street as the protesters have been kept to the sidewalk. And we are, okay.
What is that cross street?
We're here at Clinton and Monroe.
Okay.
We're at Clinton and Monroe.
Right in the loop. You're actually walking away from the United Center. You'd be walking.
Yes, we're walking south. We're walking south from the United Center. South from Ogilvy Transportation Center, where this all happened.
And southeast from the United Center.
Let me show you exactly what's going on here.
Sure. Oh, here. Okay.
Okay. Here we go. They are scrambling those bike officers in place to make sure and corral these people going forward.
This might be a strategy.
To keep them on the sidewalk and keep them moving. It absolutely is a strategy to corral them and to keep them moving and to keep them to get them away from where they were. The protests now less of a confrontation and protest and more of a cattle situation where people are being moved from one place to the other at this point. Chicago police able to move this group that was once very, very loud and confrontational, and there has been no, okay, they're going now east. They're going east.
Okay, so they've just turned east on, that's Monroe?
Monroe. They just turned east on Monroe.
Okay.
But again, the question is where are they going?
Yeah,
where are they going, and what are they going to do? Chicago police, hundreds of them you see there, on bikes, on foot, in riot gear, all following, but they're blocking this. They're essentially allowing them at this point to go.
To move around,
you can see right.
It's a little darker there.
It does not. It's very difficult right now to see if there are Chicago police on the other side of this protest line, as there were just north of us. We're just a block away from Ogilvie Transportation Center where this all happened. They are linking arms again. So there may be another group of Chicago police officers up in front of us right now. Yeah. I don't know if you can see. Rob, maybe you can tell me, because the camera's up there, I'm on the ground. So what does it look like up there?
Well, Monroe looks open, but it is also hard for us to see. And Chicago police have surrounded this area. I had mentioned the United Center a few minutes ago. This is a good distance away. I just wanted to clarify. The Israeli consulate is down in the Loop, so you're a few miles away from the United States. This is not going to disrupt the Democratic National Convention tonight.
Not in any way, shape, or form. This is nowhere near the United Center. There is no threat to anyone at the United Center or any clash with police there at all. This is all they're now headed toward the Loop, and Monroe is open. I was able to actually jump up on the sidewalk and look. There is not a police officer over there. They're able to march east now on Monroe, towards the Loop, towards the heart of the Loop, where there's transportation, where I'm sure some of these people may have parked. And we will see what happens here in the next few minutes. But this is a much different situation, and Chicago police were able to allow them and funnel them onto the sidewalk to go basically around in a half circle. And they're cutting them off at Monroe. Here we go. They cannot turn north on Monroe to get back in front of the Israeli consulate. So if they were to take a left here and go north on Canal, rather, and then turn another left, they'd be back at Ogilvie Transportation Center.
Yep.
They are now being corralled south on Canal, and that is where we're looking.
They're just kind of now serpentining through the downtown area. Those who work down in the Loop,
yes,
this is right in the heart of it. Rush hour is long since passed. There are not a lot of people downtown in this area necessarily at this time of night. I don't know if they're trying to zigzag over to State Street or Michigan Avenue. They're still a ways away from that, Mark, and it doesn't look like the police are going to let them go.
No, so they are still behind us. The police are marching as well. They are amassed there as well. So they are here just in case the group tries to turn around, but they are now going south on Canal. And you're right, to your point, this is not disrupting anything. We're right by Union Station at this point, and we're looking at a group that now has quite a wide berth. They are able to be spread out on this street, and there are no police with them to clash with in front of them because they're just moving now. This has become a march.
Mark, stay with us. We're going to keep your camera up and interrupt me at any time, and Chuck, but I want to bring our investigative reporter Chuck Gowdy back into this to talk about the strategy that perhaps we're watching unfold here live as it happens. Is this the police with a pretty poignant method to get this finally under control? It's not out of control, Chuck, but just to corral these protesters and do what they have to do.
Well, this might be option number 3, Rob. There was one option to let them talk and then arrest them if they sat down in the middle of the street, which it appeared it was going that way. The other would be to just move in and take them away and shut it down. Option number 3 would appear to go to what we've seen the last couple of days, and that is get the protesters back onto the street, circle them with bike teams, line the sides of the streets so there can't be any property damage, and then kind of let them go even though they don't have a permit to do this. It would appear that that's what's happening now. The police have blocked off certain streets in an attempt to direct this crowd, but as they move through the South Loop, you have to wonder at what point do they put up the roadblock, and do we see this all restart where they are essentially penned in?
Chuck, this is a strategy too you thin out the crowd when you do something like this, right? And so perhaps there's a group of protesters back in front of the Israeli consulate that was unable to move with this group that Mark Rivera is walking with now near Union Station. That may indeed be a strategy. Thin them out and then go in and get the agitators if they refuse to disperse.
Maybe. It's possible, although it looks as though most of the people who were involved in the core group are with the marching group as well. A few stragglers appear to have left. The police kind of escorted them away. But now you have a somewhat smaller group moving through the South Loop.
Mark's with us as well. Mark, you're there. We could see Union Station, so you've moved a little bit right to the large train depot in downtown Chicago. And then it looks like the crowd, are they still on Canal? Where are you?
So we are at Canal and Adams right now.
Okay, there's Sears Tower, Willis Tower.
Is just to the, this is Union Station right here. To give you a sense, Union Station's right here. There's a line of bicycle police officers right to my left. Let me show you here. You can see everyone being blocked, and now the protesters are on this side, north on Adams, or sorry, east on Adams. So you can see that now there's a question over, they don't know where they're going at this point. You're right. You are right to say, Chuck was right. Chuck was right to say that this is, that this is a strategy to thin out the crowd. It looks thinner. We will see what happens here because
here they are, arm in arm.
They are now moving in a different direction.
Okay, these protesters
they're coming towards us,
marching
arms, and we are going to be here. Go this way. Go this way here, George. All right, guys. Excuse us. Thank you. You're good. You're good. Okay, here we go. The protesters are now again in a confrontation with police, bicycle police officers, but there are only, let's see, 2 lines of bicycle police officers at this point.
Oh, that'll likely change, I would think.
It will. But in a matter of moments, I'm sure more will be coming. But Adams is clear behind them at this point. There are police officers flanking us as well, and they are trying to arrange themselves. They're getting behind now. They're going.
It looks like they're moving
we're going to stay
here.
right here. They're going to try. They're going to try and get through. Police officers are moving to try and stop them. You see this in the middle here. Okay.
And this is what we saw here. Yeah, here you go.
All right.
They start pushing, and the police are going to push back.
Yes, police are pushing back. Yep, we're good. We're good. Police are pushing back this group, and they are creating shields with their bodies, backing everyone up. Everyone back up. Everyone's getting backed up.
Okay. Be careful, Mark, and your crew.
You hear that? That's exactly. Well, we are. We're gonna move. We're gonna get out of that situation right here. We're moving straight. Yep. Okay. We've gotten to the edge of this group right now, so we are not. We've gotten to the edge of this group right now, so we are in a safe position. We're out of the middle of that scrum. So
it looks like just a few dozen. Maybe a few dozen of them right there?
Yeah. Behind us, let's see. I mean, there is.
Okay, much more there.
There is a large. There are some more, but you know what? You can see that it has thinned out tremendously, and I don't know if that's a result of arrest or a result of people saying, "All right, I'm done with this."
Yeah.
So I think that you can. Okay, they're chanting, "Let us through."
All right, so they're going to try and get through there.
Again, we are at Canal and Adams at this point.
Okay.
But the numbers have dwindled. I mean, right behind this group of maybe 50, maybe 80 people right now trying to push through. Behind them are more police and journalists, and that's really all we see. So that crowd of 200 that we saw earlier has significantly dwindled. So we are just watching at this point to see what happens, because they had all that time on Canal to go a different direction and to leave the group. So we will see what happens with this much smaller group.
We'll likely see a lot more police officers arrive here, because earlier there were 7 rows deep. Here's Chuck. There you can see.
Yes.
So Chuck's near you at Union Station, and there are dozens and dozens of officers, it looks like, behind you, Chuck.
Rob, this is the backside of where Mark is, and the I-Team has just been told that the ringleader of the protest has just been arrested by Chicago police, seen zip-tied on the street here at Canal and Adams.
That's
so
new.
If that's the case, it will be interesting to see whether this falls apart or continues. A lot of police officers at this intersection. There are a few splinter protesters who have now returned to this scene, but the majority of the protesters are still in the street, despite the fact that, again, we are being told that the leader of the movement here tonight has been taken into custody by Chicago police.
Okay, that's new information. The I-Team confirming that one of the heads of this protest has been arrested. This was a couple blocks away from the Israeli consulate where this all unfolded a few hours ago, but things really didn't escalate until about 45 minutes ago. Mark, it looks like they're now moving. What can you tell us now? Did they breach that, or police just letting them walk?
There was some resistance. Again, there were not that many bicycle officers there at that time, and they were able to, it wasn't so contentious that they were overwhelmed, but they gave some resistance. The group was able to move its way through, and now the Chicago police and the bicycle officers, as you can see here on the side of the street, are going with the rest of this group. You see right there, Chicago police vehicle, a large one, and we will see what happens as many more Chicago police are over here.
What street are you on?
We're on Adams, going west on Adams right now. So we've just we've done 2 loops throughout. We've done basically 2 semicircles, and now we're doing another one. So we're traveling west on Adams. We're going to the west side of Union Station. On the north side, north and west of Union Station, the northwest corner right now.
Okay.
On Adams and Clinton.
Kind of an aimless,
right
an aimless wander by these protesters as they're just kind of zigzagging with no real place to go. Chuck Gowdy's camera there, we just took it down. You saw reinforcements coming for the Chicago Police Department, but you're out there, Mark. You thought hundreds, if not 1,000 or more Chicago police officers. These protesters are outnumbered.
Oh, they certainly are. There's no, there's no way that this is okay. There's a group that's trying to make its way through right now, right beside us to the front. But you are right. They are vastly outnumbered at this point in terms of the protesters and the Chicago police. You can see that many of them in riot gear over there at the front, trying to stop the movement of this march at this point.
We're getting a little bit more information from our investigative team at ABC. We talked about this group behind enemy lines burning flags, and our investigative team with ABC saying they burned at least 2 flags. One did look to be an American flag. There was some yelling to stop that, and then some of those protesters saying let it burn, and that flag did burn. This was near the Israeli consulate before these protesters began moving. And now it looks like, Mark, they're stopped again. I don't know how much longer they're going to try and do this, before the police just have had enough.
It's a very good question.
They're not getting anywhere.
Yeah, we're stopped right now. We're at a standstill at Clinton and Adams. In reference to the flags you brought up just a second ago, Rob, we saw the charred remains of those on the ground in front of Ogilvie Transportation Center before the march really started going. So we did bring you that here on the stream as well. So
there's the video.
We're taking a look now at...
Yep. It's in the top right of your
go
screen.
Ahead.
No, Mark, I know you can't see it out there, but we're watching that. We had video of this was before there were some arrests, not long before, outside the Israeli consulate, And this shortly after this video was recorded. The top right of your screen is tape. The bottom left of your screen is live right now. And it wasn't shortly after that flag was burned.
There are some arrests being made
okay.
right over here.
Okay.
Near the northeast corner of. Excuse me, the northwest corner of Union Station. You see officers there. We've got a shot of it right there at the corner. They are taking people, depending on how contentious they are, I suppose, one by one, and pushing them through the line. And there have been more arrests here as well.
Okay, so that's just happening.
We are hearing chanting. Yes, that just happened. I just saw another person get arrested. They're chanting, "Let us go," as you can hear.
We're going to keep your shot up.
More riot police.
Oh, here they are.
More riot police now arriving. Yep, on Adams. They're traveling from west to east.
And you see, these are the police that have helmets on. They're a little bit more prepared for any confrontation. And some people complaining that they're not allowed to move. You were told you weren't allowed to protest down here without a permit, so the police are just doing what they said they were going to do. Chuck Gowdy, you are just a short distance away from Mark's camera here. It looked like a lot of reinforcements just came in to try and secure that intersection there.
They did. It's Clinton and Adams is the intersection. This may be the last stand intersection. It's possible. You had some protest supporters nose to nose with Chicago police right here, demanding that the people who have been arrested be released. As we reported, it was a top leader, high-ranking leader of the protest group that was taken into custody about 5 minutes ago in the street, zip-tied, according to video of what's happening.
Yep, Chuck, we've got a camera up just a short distance from you. This is Mark Rivera's crew.
Yep, okay, we're going. So, hey, Rob, just to let you know, right now there are mass arrests being made at this moment.
Okay.
We are watching Chicago police. Chuck mentioned this would be the last stand. This is it. Chicago police have gone in. They have confronted the protesters that are left here, and they have been making mass arrests. They are pulling people from the crowd, and they are arresting them at this moment. So we're gonna try and get close to the bike line where it is safer over here, and there's less chance of getting pushed around. And you see, look at these, hundreds of Chicago police officers right here, and.
Yeah, this is happening live, so apologies
They're trying
for.
To get through.
Mark, get safe here for a second. Yep, bottom left of your screen, we just saw an arrest happening. A gentleman on the ground. I shouldn't say a gentleman, a protester on the ground.
All right. We're going. Hold on.
Are they pushing you back?
So we've been caught. We've been told to leave. We have been told to leave.
Okay.
All right. We're trying to get on the side.
Yeah, Mark, we'll let you relocate.
We're going to the other side.
Chuck, that was an arrest that happened. Chuck Gowdy, if you can hear me, that we just saw somebody get taken into custody right there with some, it looked like white shirts. Those are high-ranking Chicago police officials there that weren't messing around.
Yeah, they were. The police superintendent was right in the middle of
That's
that
what I
arrest.
thought.
May have done it himself. It was hard to say. But an individual got into a shoving match with authorities.
And there it goes again. Be careful, Chuck. This protester placing his hands on Chicago police, pushed out of the way. The police had said, "You put your hands on us, then we're gonna put our hands on you and take you into custody." That incident we just watched right there, Chuck, a couple feet away from you. It looks like the protest.
Not a good idea to engage Chicago police who have helmets, batons, pepper spray, and guns and tasers. That's for certain.
Luckily, we have not seen anything besides arrests and pushing. We've not seen any tear gas or any sort of substance like that released. And just seen arrests like you see there on the bottom left of your screen. Chicago police, Chuck, just as you predicted, now moving in to arrest these protesters after warning them several times to disperse. And here come all the units now that Chuck was mentioning. They need these trucks to take these protesters away after being arrested. And now you see that there are several people.
Right here, it's actually right back there. They they were waiting to bring in those transport vehicles. That's one of them right there. It can hold maybe 20 prisoners or so, and they needed to have those in place before they started taking people into custody. But as I indicated, this is the beginning of the end of this protest at this intersection, Adams between Clinton and Canal. It's going to end here because this is the place where the police have cracked down and have started taking, more than an occasional person into custody.
There's the superintendent of the Chicago Police Department, Larry Snelling, right in the fray. We believe we saw him on video helping his officers make an arrest. They had a protester on the ground, one of several. We just saw some with zip ties behind their back as they were getting arrested and now taken into police custody. Will likely face charges tonight. Mark, you're on the move again. What's going on?
Yeah. We are on the move, and what you see right here are hundreds of Chicago police officers in full riot gear. I want to give you a sense, George. Up here is where the protesters have been basically pushed away. As Chuck was mentioning, there have been many arrests at this point, and there are even more Chicago police officers at this intersection just in front of us, north on Canal. So we are going to move our way up there. But you're right. I mean, they are now being penned in basically from the south and the north, a true show of force at this moment from Chicago police officers who are moving this group. Some people have been trying to. Hey man, hey, come on. Some people have been trying to move forward and get away from this, but it seems like right now there's really nowhere to go. Right? Chicago police again are blocking Monroe again. Hey man.
We've seen that guy before, Mark. He was trying to who knows what he's talking about, some nonsense. He was doing the same thing to Chuck. We'll go back to Chuck, Mark, let you get settled.
Okay.
Look at the difference, though, from where Mark was walking with the few protesters that are left, and really the calm behind Chuck and the show of force. Here's the difference. There's one camera where there's probably just a few dozen protesters now surrounded by Chicago police. Chuck, this plan by the Chicago Police Department now being executed, they were prepared for this tonight.
They were prepared for it. They executed it. There were a few veers and exits and entrances along the way, but this is exactly how it was mapped out with a group that they knew was interested in trouble, wanted to get arrested, and was intent on creating chaos. The one thing that I would caution here, it's very easy to sit and watch the way this looks and think that the city's up for grabs. It's not. This is a very small area and a very small number of protesters. When it's all said and done, you're going to have probably a few dozen people taken into custody facing charges. They'll show up in court. But there have been no fire bombings, there have been no shootings. Have not heard of police injuries, although it did get rough and tumble for a few minutes. But when the police make an arrest, they use the force necessary to take someone into custody. And it doesn't play out like it does on the TV cop shows. They're serious about it. They're angry about it because people are coming after them. But the point is, the city's not in flames. This is not indicative of any kind of a widespread riot. It was a small group of people who came to create mayhem. They succeeded for a short time, and then the Chicago police did what they were planning to do, and that was take them into custody if they broke the law.
Let's go back to Mark Rivera. Mark, it looks like police and some protesters are going back and forth again here.
We're at Monroe and Canal.
Yeah, all right. We are at Monroe and Canal right here outside of the Association Bank, and you see there are a few, maybe a dozen, tops 2 dozen protesters who are standing on top of one of the signs here, and Chicago police are Chicago police are making mass arrests at this point. They're trying to grab them and get them through the line and get them to their next point in this process. And you can see here there is a bit of a standoff as well. They are, talk about nowhere to go. They're on an island surrounded by Chicago police at this point. The last few stragglers of this protest that, as Chuck said, came to specifically to rabble rouse in some ways, and they were effective in that. Many of them got arrested, and now we're moving slightly into the middle of the street here at Monroe and Canal to see exactly what happens. You see Chicago police now approaching these protesters, trying to pull them down.
Yep.
You see them? Okay, yep. They're trying to pull them down, and we are watching them right now going, and this is the start of the process of what I'm sure is going to be an interesting few hours for them as they are booked and put into jail and whatever else. You see here one of the arrests.
That's one way to put it. Chuck made an important point here. If you're just joining us live, some protests have erupted in downtown Chicago. Several arrests have been made. We've watched that here live on the air. This is happening as the Democratic National Convention is happening at the United Center. For those of you not familiar with Chicago, bottom left, that's Union Station downtown. This isn't close to the United Center. This is not happening anywhere near the United Center. A couple groups of protesters last night or yesterday tried to breach a fence there. Didn't work out for them. Now these protesters are downtown in the Loop. There are not a lot of people downtown at this hour, certainly in this location. They're not really disrupting anything here. But you see, there's one on the top right of your screen. It looks like police taking a protester into custody. And you can see the show of force on the bottom left there. That's not far from the camera you're seeing where that arrest is being made. And now you can see some of the police personnel vehicles. Okay, I see that. Yep. There. So there's going to be more arrests here. You see Chicago police with helmets and riot gear. You see them wearing the yellow vests. They are moving in to make arrests there. You said you're in front of a bank there, Mark?
Yeah, they're in front of the Catton building here at Monroe and Canal.
Okay.
And you see the swarm of Chicago police officers who have moved in. There were about 24 protesters that were in front of the Catton building standing on various signs, and I don't see a single one of them standing on a sign anymore. All of them, it looks like, have been apprehended by Chicago police. And you see there's a bit of a scrum in there. You see Chicago police still moving and using the force that is necessary to arrest at this point. But you see none of those people standing at all anymore. I don't see a single protester. There's not a single protester left here.
Yeah, just a few minutes ago.
There are no protesters that you can see.
There were about a dozen standing there. They're now going to be arrested. The Chicago police, there's on the bottom left, that's live. There is someone being arrested right now. They'll be loaded into that vehicle, and they will be taken to jail tonight. They're using zip ties. This is what police are trained for. And they will start making arrests and continue to be making arrests. The police, we were watching live here in the last hour, warned these protesters to disperse peacefully. Some of them did, and those who did not, you're watching be arrested. A lot of Chicago police downtown. This is not near the United Center. Democratic National Convention is going off peacefully tonight. We'll be there to bring you the latest as we continue to cover these protests live here in the Loop. Chuck, it looks like they're making many arrests here after those warnings that weren't heeded. Now it's time to go to jail if you don't listen to the police.
Rob, it was 13 arrests in connection with that fence toppling yesterday. Clearly, it'll be more than that from this incident tonight. Spanned several blocks, but only involved a few hundred protesters. But they came intent to have this be the ending, and Chicago police had enough people on the scene to take care of shutting it down. this is what is the beginning of the processing right here. They're taking names and vital information. They're zip tying people, putting them in that wagon, and then they'll be taken off to the lockup, and that's going to be their sleeping quarters for the night.
It's gotten a lot quieter for both of you. Your camera's live with your microphones on. There's a lot less noise around you.
Well, it is for several reasons. Number one, we say that, and the protesters have just started chanting again, but the protest quieted down. The police also quieted down because they're not engaged at the moment. The other thing is the police superintendent issued an order a few minutes ago to clear the streets. And so even though we're here, there are some other people here, the paid observers from various legal councils who are monitoring these arrests to make sure that they're done by the book. There are some community groups here, and people live around here, and this is their neighborhood. And so I think what the police superintendent wanted was to clear the actual streets, to get people off of the highway itself so that they could have the police regain control of the streets and process these people and put them in the wagon.
This was not unexpected tonight from this group behind enemy lines. Chuck Gowdy and our I-team have been covering this group who said this is what they wanted to do. They wanted to engage with police, and they've done so. And now many of them will be spending the night, like you mentioned, Chuck, in jail. What do you see in there, Mark? There were about a dozen or so protesters up there standing on those stairs. I don't see any now.
No, there are none, Rob, and I just want to give you a sense of what's happened now. There are no protesters visible at all at this point. They've all been taken away to be booked and go through the process now. But we're looking at this for the last several hours, and you can just see what a difference it is from yesterday, right? You look at this situation here, and you see a group of protesters who intentionally confronted police and then were funneled throughout the loop, and now have come to an end with many either dispersing or being arrested right now. The 24 protesters who were standing on the signs right over here at the Catton building, they have been arrested, and now it looks like Chicago police are starting to move out from the area as well and establish their position here. There are still blockades at Monroe and Canal on either side of us here, and even I think on the east side as well. But we're watching here what looks like the last gasp of this protest, and it went with a gasp and not with a bang, right? You see all of these Chicago police able to handle these protesters and get them moved out, and you saw the kind of skirmish that happened and the confrontation that happened earlier. This, all in all, no tear gas was deployed, no shots were fired, from what I saw at least, and we were marching with these protesters for hours at this point, Chicago police are moving in now. No tasers were deployed, anything like that, right? They used their hands, they used force to get. They used the tactics that were necessary to get these protesters into now what looks like city buses that are now waiting on the south side of the street here. You can see Chicago police and these many city buses.
Mark, thank you and your crew for your coverage tonight. I know we have a lot more work to do because our newscast will go on ABC7 after tonight's Democratic National Convention in the United Center. So we will wrap things up with you. I know you're going to try and get some. Yeah, we're going to let you go. Chuck, I wanted to see if you're still there. Any last-minute observations here before we end our breaking news coverage that you've seen? Because I know we now want to get some details for our newscast a little bit later tonight on arrests, who these people are, and what we'll find out. But any last thoughts from you?
Only that this was by the book. I've used that term a couple of times tonight, but the police superintendent repeated numerous times how these incidents would play out. The First Amendment would be enforced, and then if people started committing crimes, engaging with the police, they would be arrested. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah, Chuck Gowdy and his crew, we appreciate your coverage with the I-Team. We thank you for watching with us as we watch this unfold here live on the air with you streaming. Ravi Beshwal and Cheryl Burton at the convention at the United Center tonight, so we'll have the latest on what's going on inside. Before we let you go tonight, this was nowhere near the United Center. This was down in the Loop, and when I say nowhere near, it was a few miles away. These protesters did not get anywhere close to that zone over at the United Center. We appreciate you spending your evening with us as we joined you for this breaking news coverage. We'll have updates on the arrests and any more information. We hope to hear from Chicago police tonight. We hope to hear from the superintendent. In the meantime, I'm Rob Elgis with ABC 7. Thanks for spending some time with us tonight.